So moving over to the exhaust side of the motor, I'm going to start with doing the dump pipe and external gate. So just pull that V-band off and the V-band to the turbo and pull all of that off as one piece and be able to put that aside. That'll free up a lot more room. Probably going to be best just leaving the turbo attached to the manifold, since the manifold has to come off anyway. It looks quite easy to get to all the bolts, especially with that gate out of the way, so I'll be doing all of that. And we are getting a new stud kit to be able to go along with this motor, and it'll make things a lot nicer to bolt it all up. But yeah, obviously pulling lines off, like running down to the drain down there, just these AN fittings, nice braided setup, so we'll be able to pull all that off. Same with the top, and it doesn't look like, yeah, so it's not a coolant fed turbo, so no water cooling, so it's all oil by the looks of things, which is all well and good. Just means we've got less stuff to take off and put back on, which is a bonus. So yeah, I'll start by pulling off this dump section and go from there. So with the two V-bands unbolted, that stuff just came right off. Very, very easy to start off, which is good. I was having a good look, and it actually looks like getting to those 4 bolts for the turbo will be quite easy. So I'm just going to undo this oil feed, undo the drain, and then I'll just pull the whole turbo off as one piece. It's going to be a lot easier to maneuver around. I thought they were going to be a pain to get to, but should be quite easy. So I'll get this turbo off, and then it's time to pull that manifold off. So that is the turbo off. It's sitting down there. God, I love high mount turbos. If I just wish that that thing had one, it would have made my job so much easier to swap my turbo over. Literally like one nut that just spins off, and that just vibes there for the feed, and then 2 Allen keys for the drain. All oil cooled, no water lines, no mess. So easy. It's making me want to get a high mount now. I mean, for how easy it is, why not? So anyway, I was going to pull this manifold off, and then that's all the exhaust side off, get the rocker covers off, pull the timing belt off, and then that will be head off. Happy days. Alright, so I've got the 6-boost manifold completely off. It's just sitting down there with the turbo. And it means the head is now ready to come off. There's nothing else attached to it. So I'm going to pull these rocker covers off, undo the head bolts, and then pull the timing belt off, and the head should just pop right up. And then that should be today all done. There's a few other bits and pieces on here I'm not sure about. I need to message Bryce, find out what he wants to do. So his AC didn't have a belt on it, so it obviously wasn't connected. I don't know if he's keeping the AC. If not, we may as well take it off and free up some room. And then he's going to need a few bits and pieces that he's left behind, like that mount wasn't tight, a bolt's missing off it, or a nut's missing off it, so need some bits off him, but for the most part it's been pretty good. I've got a little list for him of bits and pieces that he's going to need to add to his quote from Kudos, just with bits and pieces that the motor needs to make it reliable. But yeah, here's all the stuff that's come off so far. It's actually nowhere near as full on as the 25, which is good, especially just being a high mount turbo. There's a lot less to take off, so yeah, made my life a lot easier. Alrighty, so I've got both rocker covers off, and they're sitting around somewhere on one of the shelves. The manifold is just held on with a couple of nuts just so it's out of the way. I didn't really have anywhere to put it, so I've just left that there. Next thing we're going to be doing, so cool thing about these motors, it's probably very similar with most of them, but once you've actually set your timing marks up, these have little grooves cut out of the cams, and you can kind of make out the head bolt down there. So I've got cutouts all the way along. I can get to all the head bolts without pulling the cams out, which is just going to be good because I don't have to worry about pulling all that crap out. Obviously once that's undone, slip the timing belt off. I've got a whole heap of parts which I'll be doing a separate video on, just going through the parts that we're putting into this, how much everything cost, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And we are going to be pulling the AC off completely. So Bryce doesn't run AC, never has, doesn't plan to, so we're just going to pull that off completely, and that whole kind of bracket section will come off, so that'll free up a massive big portion of the motor there and just tidy things up a lot. Same deal with his heater, so all of his heater hoses, as I showed earlier on, all full of crap. They're all going to need to be replaced. what we've decided to do is just do a complete heater bypass kit, because he's not going to be running a heater, and we'll pretty much unscrew this piece and our bypass will run from there, the braided hose, straight to there. This fitting will pull out. I don't know if there's a nut on the other side or if it's just pressed in. Either way, that'll come out. Our fitting goes into the side of there and has a nut on the other side which will hold it on. And obviously we'll be doing our thermostat while we're there as well, so it makes sense to do it all. And that'll delete all the extra hoses. It'll really tidy up the engine and save a lot of money, because the kit is available through Franklin Performance in New Zealand and delivered to Australia. The kit's about $130 including shipping and GST, so a very cheap kit. It's quite basic if you want to do it yourself. It's just fittings and hose, but I may as well get the kit, know it's going to be right, and just chuck it straight on and happy days. But now we're going to get pulling this head off. We'll undo all these bolts, pop the belt off, and see what the head looks like. So if you are doing this yourself, thought I'd just mention as well, there are a few 10mm bolts that also run around to hold the head on. So you got 2 on the back, obviously you already pulled one out, and then 1 on the front there where my finger is for the intake side. So those three 10mm also have to come off, otherwise you're going to have a lot of drama trying to pull the head off, so make sure you don't forget those. Alrighty, so turns out I'm going to have to pull these cams out anyway, even though there is a little provision. I've got the wrong socket, not the wrong socket, but I can get to the rear 2 bolts because there's a bit more of an opening, but my socket is a 1/2 inch drive hex piece, one of those ones, and the actual end of that piece there is too big to fit between the head and the cams, so just going to have to pop the cams off. Everything's all marked, so I'll slide the belt off, undo the cam gears, and then pull that all off as one piece. Once the cams are out of the way, pull the rest of the head studs out, or head bolts out, and then I'll mark all the shim buckets, make sure that's all sweet, and then lightly bolt the cams back down, and that can go off to the machine shop and they can go through it all. These are very loose head bolts. That one's a bit tighter, but I reckon 5 of these have been definitely not tight enough. That one's not even in there anymore, so.
Wow.
So that's our head off. Looks like there's a bit of strange stuff going on in these water jackets, which might tell us half the reasons to why that Welsh plug blew out, so it's going to need a good clean up before it all goes back together, that's for sure. So, there's our old gasket. Doesn't seem like it's blown. Oh. If it hasn't blown, it's been very close to, that's for sure. And it just looks like a standard gasket, never been changed, which is good. It means it's never been machined or anything, so that is all good. There's definitely a big difference between the size of the pistons in a 20 and a 25. These are tiny compared to the 25 ones, so doesn't seem like anything crazy has been going on. I don't see any damage to the top of the pistons, so that's good, but it's going to need to give these water jackets a good clean out, or just full that rusty water shit that's been going through the motor.
Oh
so,
yeah, look at that.
Yeah, all crusty. But yeah, that's the head off. I'll put the camshafts back into the head, lightly bolt those down, then that can go off to the head shop. They'll check the shim buckets, make sure everything's all cool, give them back to me all labelled. I'll put it all back together. I'll get the head back skimmed, and then we'll give the block a good tidy up. Start with a razor blade just to get all this stuff off the surface, and then get out a wire wheel, like a non-abrasive kind of wire wheel that'll just pick up little bits and pieces but won't put little divots all through the head, the block, sorry. So just going to need a good clean up, and preparation's key when doing this kind of stuff. Just make sure everything's nice and tidy. Should be all well and good. But that's where we're going to end this video up, with the head off. Next video I'll just do a rundown of what parts we're going to be putting into this motor, and then after that it'll be starting to put it all back together, which will be at James Nolan's for, so should be good fun. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video.
You say you wanna cry, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason.